Hi, welcome to the Ariba P2P technical overview. My name is Arun Prakash Kalyamurthy. I go by Arun. I have been with SAP Ariba for around 6 years now, and I am a technical leader on the downstream deployment services. Today we are going to talk about the technical overview of P2P, what it basically entails, what are the objectives of this presentation, is to get you guys familiar with where Ariba P2P fits in the overall system landscape and gain familiarity with the technical aspects of integrating P2P with your ERP and other in-house systems. I will also introduce the master and the transactional data that P2P comes with and what sort of integration options are available. I will also walk you through the documentation, show you guys where you can find it and how to use it, and also help you understand the scope of technical effort that you're going to incur during the course of deployment. So let's get started with the agenda. First we will talk about the overall landscape of P2P, talk about the integration that entails your master data integration, transactional data integration, also talk about what are the different options of integrations, talk a little bit about remote authentication, and end the presentation with documentation. Okay, so let's get started. So how does Ariba P2P fit in your overall landscape of the systems that you have? This is the solution footprint of P2P. So before I get started and confuse you or show you guys how all the transactions flow, let's just understand where or what are these building blocks of this diagram. Okay. On the very far right hand side, the blue box, it talks SAP, but it can be any of your ERP system. Okay. In the middle is the solution that you have purchased, Ariba P2P, and whenever you purchase any Ariba downstream solution, you will get a account on the Ariba network, which is what is depicted here. Ariba network is like a marketplace, which is where all the buyers and the suppliers, they come together and all the transactions are exchanged between buyers and suppliers. And on the far right hand side, the orange box are the suppliers. You will have different types of suppliers that you work with. You would have a manual supplier, you could have an EDI supplier, or a super evolved CXML supplier who have integrated their systems with Ariba network directly. On the bottom, beneath the ERP, you also can see a small box that basically talks about the integration options. So it says web services integration toolkit or direct connectivity. I will talk about what those means, but for the moment, just understand that it indicates a middleware that will help you integrate your ERP with Ariba P2P. Okay, now that we have understood what the building blocks are, let's get started with the actual process of transaction that gets transferred between these building blocks. The entire process begins with a user in your enterprise getting into Ariba P2P and starting the requisition process. The user goes ahead and submits a requisition. The requisition undergoes through an approval, which is what this user with a small tick mark indicates. Once the requisition has been approved, a PO is generated and the PO is sent to the Ariba network. Once it reaches Ariba network, the suppliers will be able to see the POs on their account on the Ariba network. Suppliers will go ahead and they will provide the goods and ship it to your door, and someone from your enterprise needs to go ahead and do the receiving. That's where receiving happens. Again, you can see that it can undergo some amount of approval. Once the receiving is completed, it's now supplier's turn to take the ownership of the next transaction, which is where the supplier will go into the Ariba network, use the PO and flip the PO and create an invoice. The invoice flows all the way from the Ariba network into Ariba P2P. Once invoice gets into P2P, a copy of that invoice is created, which is what is called invoice reconciliation document. Now, invoice reconciliation document is the one that undergoes further processing in Ariba P2P. So it can undergo any exception handling or any other approvals that you may have put in place. Once the approvals are finished on the invoice reconciliation, the OK to pay file is generated by Ariba P2P and it is sent to your ERP. Once your ERP consumes the OK to pay file generated from P2P, the invoice document is created in your ERP, and eventually it will get paid by your ERP to the supplier. Once the payment has been completed, the remittance advice or the payment details from ERP will be extracted and sent to P2P. The same information will be then forwarded over to Ariba network, which would be then available for the suppliers to take a look at. This helps the supplier to understand where in the cycle is their payment located. Okay, so that marks the overall flow of the transactions with P2P and your ERP. So let's move on and try to understand more about what Ariba P2P is and how it works and how the integrations can be achieved. So Ariba P2P is a cloud solution. It is hosted by Ariba as a remote service, and we Ariba, we take care of monitoring its performance, and we will rebalance the load as and when necessary. We also have monthly service packs and quarterly release updates that happens. The test and the production side, we will talk about the test and production side. They are updated at the same time. So if a new service pack is released or a new quarterly release update is being performed, then both your test site and the production site will be updated together. Notifications are sent very well in advance to the support personnel that have registered on connect.ariba.com. We also have this self-service feature exploration, which means that any new upcoming features can be explored beforehand so that you get an idea of what you are going to achieve by using the new feature. We also have scheduled maintenance period. We send out the notification very well in advance, and you would know when these maintenance periods are going to be performed. And it usually is early morning on the weekends, especially in the North America time zone. You also can achieve up-to-date information on system performance and security by going to trust.ariba.com. Alright, this is the slide that talks about the two sites that you have purchased. You have a test site and a production site. We call it as realms in Ariba, but a simpler term could be site. So the test site is used for data loading and troubleshooting. Basically, you are going to use the test site for everything till you are ready to go live on production. We are going to use the test site to go ahead and do all the configuration that you want. If there are any customizations that we identify that needs to be accommodated, then we will go ahead and try those customizations out on the test site. We will also try to establish some transactional connectivity with the test suppliers account so that you are able to send the transactions and notice how transactions are perceived and received by the suppliers. So that gets you an understanding of how the system is going to work in production. We are also going to leverage the test site for testing and training. Till you are ready to go live on the production site is just going to be a dormant one. Once the test is stable and you have signed off that everything that looks on test is what you want, we will schedule a production cutover, and at that time all the customization, all the configuration, all the necessary things that we have done on the test site would be migrated over from test into the production. Okay, and we will work closely with you during this production cutover period. So I initially mentioned that when you purchase a P2P solution, you get an account on the Ariba network. So let's just to try to understand at a high level, how is P2P different from your Ariba network? Ariba P2P is a solution that is going to be accessed by a large audience of enterprise users on your end. This is the tool where your day-to-day procurement activities are going to be conducted. Ariba network, on the other hand, is a network of buyers and sellers. So you as a customer, since you have purchased P2P, you will have a buyer account on the Ariba network, meaning you could send out purchase orders to suppliers to which the suppliers would react. Like I said, AN is like a marketplace, so AN brokers the exchange of electronic transactional documents between buyers and suppliers. You can also set up some level of transaction rules which complement your ERP configuration and can be can be controlled or can be used to control the kind of transaction that needs to be exchanged between your organization and the suppliers. Similar to P2P, you will have a test and a production buyer account on the AN, which basically corresponds to your test downstream side or the production downstream side. Honestly, not a lot of enterprise users from your organization would be accessing Ariba network. Only those who deal with the supplier relationships or catalogs, or anyone who works very closely with the supplier at the transactional level would be accessing the Ariba network. When you purchase Ariba P2P, we also give you a test supplier account so that you can test your transactional integration on the Ariba network. What it basically means is it helps you to understand when you create a PO and send it to the supplier, how does it appear to the supplier and what is supplier going to do once he receives the PO. So it helps you mimic the supplier's action of sending the invoices, sending the goods, and receiving the payment information back from your ERP. So it helps you get a peek into supplier's world on the Ariba network. Configuration and customization. These are categorized as two different things, and it's important to understand what each one of them mean. Configuration basically means we are going to tweak the system in a way that it is allowed to do. So we have something called as global system parameters. We can set the parameters that will basically dictate how the site is going to perform for each and every user that is going to use P2P. We also are going to load the configuration data. For example, you want to control how the receiving is going to happen for a particular commodity. So that's going to be driven by configuration data. We can also set individual user preferences and design the approval rules such that every particular transaction involved is going to undergo the same kind of treatment, and we get to dictate how it needs to differ or be consistent among different transactions. Customizations, on the other hand, are something that we need to change in the behavior of the out-of-the-box P2P. We can tweak the approval rules. We can add new fields if you think that some fields are missing that you need for your day-to-day business. Then we can go ahead and add those fields. Most of the customizations are subject to technical feasibility. A technical lead would engage very closely with you when it comes to customization, understand the requirements, and then provide you a design that caters to your requirement. Okay, let's go on to integration. So this is going to talk about the master data and the configuration data and how we can integrate them. Let's understand what it means. So master data basically means any data that is at most necessary to create the transactions on P2P. So information such as your accounting information, payment terms, vendor IDs or vendor location information, all such things becomes core master data that is absolutely necessary for you to create a transaction. Configuration data basically means it drives how P2P needs to behave when you create a transaction. So things such as how we are going to control receiving, how we are going to design your approvals, all these things fall under configuration data. Okay, and this is a pictorial representation of how your master data can be integrated with Ariba P2P. So you have the ERP at the very bottom, and you can have a middleware that is going to basically convert the data that can be extracted from ERP and fed into Ariba P2P. And at the top, all these chevrons basically represent what are the different types of master data that exist in P2P. A technical lead would also engage with you and help you understand the different files and different objects that needs to be created in P2P. But just understand at a high level for now that these are the different master data, and you would be loading them into P2P, and it needs to be extracted from ERP. One thing about master data is your ERP is going to be the source of truth for all the master data. Ariba P2P is not going to let you create master data by itself. Your ERP is going to be the source of the master data, and we need to make sure that it keeps P2P in sync at all the times. Alright, helper files for approval rules. This basically falls under the configuration data. When you design an approval rule, you can drive the logic of approval rules based on some data, and we call them as helper files because they basically help or supplement the approval rules. And you can set up some conditions which is going to use the data from the helper files and drive the business approval mechanism. And we have a quick screenshot of how the helper file looks. Once we get engaged closely with your business folks, we will gather the requirements of how the business approval rules needs to be designed, and we will work very closely with you in designing the helper files as well. And we'll also help you understand and think where the information on the helper file needs to be sourced from. Okay, let's move on to the transactional data integration. Transactional data basically represents the business documents that are created in Ariba systems, basically Ariba P2P in this scope. and whatever transactions that we create are going to be exported out of Ariba P2P, and depending upon the type of integration that we are going to involve, these may or may not be consumed by your ERP. We'll talk more about the transactional integration and determine which ones makes more sense for your deployment. And here is another pictorial representation of how the transactional data integration happens. Again, at the very bottom, you will have your ERP. You can consume the transactions and maybe feed the transactions into multiple instances of ERP or multiple systems on your end, and you will have the middleware to facilitate that. And at the very top, the chevrons, they represent the different types of transactions that can be integrated between P2P and the ERP. And you might notice two other bars, web service XML channel or HTTPS flat file channel. I'll talk more about this, but what they represent are the formats in which the transactions are exported out of P2P. So we have options of web service for transactions. We also have the option of using a flat file channel for transactional integration. We'll talk more about these options. Here is a slide that basically talks more about what does transactional data include. The optional ones are the requisitions, the purchase order, and advance ship notices and receipts. Not all P2P customers go ahead and integrate all the transactions. What they typically go ahead and integrate are the invoices, the approved invoices that are completed in P2P. Basically, we call them as OK to pay file. It represents what it's named. These are the invoices that are okayed in P2P to be paid. So if you receive an invoice in the OK to pay extract from P2P, it means that the invoice has been exception handled, processed, and approved in P2P, and ERP can treat that invoice ready to be paid to the supplier. Depending upon the kind of ERP you have and the kind of business process you follow and the technical restriction that the ERP may impose, a typical transactional integration would involve a PO and receipt integration, and definitely an OK to pay file integration. There are other options. There are other transactional integration options provided by P2P. You can import requisitions into Ariba. You can integrate advance ship notices, and you can also load budgets into Ariba. We'll talk more as we learn about the scope of what you're trying to achieve using the P2P. During the course of deployment, the functional lead and the technical lead will work closely with you to understand these additional transactional integration requirements and help you with the integration of those. Let's take a look at some of the basics of integration. What is the integration going to entail when it comes to ERP and P2P? So In a nutshell, there are three options by which you can integrate your integrate your ERP with Ariba P2P. The very first option is your batch file channel. We also call it as a CSV file channel, because the files that we use to integrate your ERP and P2P are going to be CSV file format. CSV stands for comma separated values, so all the flat files are going to contain data which are delimited by commas. You can load multiple records or multiple files in a single batch. We provide a tool called as ITK. I will quickly talk about that in a couple of minutes. You can schedule the tool to load the files into Ariba or extract the files from Ariba. And this is the most widely used option with all our customers. The one thing to note about the batch file channel, as the name suggests, it is batch mechanism, so it's not real time, but you can schedule your batch file integration in such a way that it is near real time, if not absolutely real time. The next option caters to the real time requirement. It's web services, it's synchronous, so all the XML, all the SOAP messages or XML messages are sent over HTTPS, and it is not batch, so it is going to be always one message per transaction. And you will need a middleware application on your end to send or receive these messages. Most commonly we have seen PI or BizTalk or TIBCO, but you can use, there are variety of tools available in the market, and you can use any one of them that supports web services. Like I said, it's a real-time integration, so any document that gets created in P2P will be immediately sent to your ERP, and your ERP can consume it and have the document or the information ready as soon as it is created in P2P. And the same goes in the other way around too. Anything that gets created in SAP, and if it is integrated with P2P using web services, then P2P will be updated immediately. The third option is the SAP Direct Connectivity. This is specifically designed for our SAP customers. If you're using ECC, then you can go ahead and use the option of Direct Connectivity. So basically, we provide you the SAP transport programs, which will extract the data and directly load that into Ariba P2P. Without having you to install any additional middleware or any additional tools. Again, this is a batch mechanism. It can be scheduled. It's not real time, but you can schedule it to achieve near real time integration. This is just a pictorial representation of the different options that you have, how Ariba P2P can receive data. Pretty much the same options. You can do CSV file channel, you can do ECC Direct Connect, you can do web services. You always have the option of going into P2P and loading the data manually. Okay. On the same lines, how can Ariba provide you the P2P data? You can leverage web services, ECC Direct Connect, or CSV file channel. Here also you can go in and extract the data manually, but we need to make sure that you have some way of integrating that extracted data in your ERP. This is a quick slide about how CSV file format looks like. Like I said, CSV stands for comma separated value. If you try to open the file in a notepad, the bottom screenshot shows how the data is going to look. It's just going to be data and delimited by commas. We strongly recommend that you use a specific CSV editor while we are deploying P2P. The reason being, we have seen a lot of customers try to leverage Excel, and that's not the best tool, because Excel has its own default formatting. It messes with the data, and the user won't even realize the data changes that's happening behind the scenes when they use Excel. So definitely try to avoid using Excel, and if you can go for a CSV editor, we encourage you to do that. We at Ariba, we use a tool called as SkillLink. It's a licensed product, and you can definitely leverage that. Web services, again, quick slide about how web services looks like, what it entails. On the right hand side, you will see a screenshot of how the message looks like. Again, this is real-time integration. It's one transaction per message, and all the messages are sent using SOAP over HTTPS. One caveat here though, the web service option is not available for all the integration. Definitely master data is not completely covered by web services. Web services are more for transactional integration, so just be careful about web services. Work closely with your technical lead, and he or she would be able to guide you in the right direction of using web services. SAP Direct Connectivity, like I mentioned, this one is specifically designed for SAP customers. If you are using ECC or if your ERP is SAP, then you can leverage this. We provide a set of transports that are designed to extract data from SAP tables, and we populate files that Ariba needs. Again, these messages are sent over HTTPS. It's not real time, so it's batch mechanism. All the CSV files are generated and sent over to Ariba in a batch mode. You can achieve error handling using SAP Direct Connectivity, and if you're familiar with how SAP works, then you will find the logging information in the SLG one. ITK, Integration Toolkit. This is a toolkit, or this is a tool that Ariba has developed to facilitate the automated transfer of data from your ERP into Ariba P2P and the other way around. So it's a very lightweight tool. It allows you to do some amount of notifications and error handling and archiving of data. It also allows you to schedule the tool. It also allows you to schedule the tool so that you can extract the data from P2P in a scheduled fashion. The technical lead, he will work closely with you. If you decide to go with the option of ITK, the technical lead will help you install the ITK and also configure it so that you are able to transport the files from your ERP into P2P and also be able to extract the data from P2P into ERP. Okay. One quick note about scheduling. It does not have a built-in scheduling capability, but if you're going to install the ITK on Windows or on Unix, it will support the operating system's scheduling mechanism. And you must have figured by now, ITK comes in two flavors: one for Windows as well as one for Unix. If you are an SAP ERP user, then we also have ITK that can be installed on the PI. So the technical lead would be able to guide you with what kind of ITK suits your need and be able to configure that for you. These are more information about ITK. ITK is a really lightweight tool. It does not need too much of memory. I have seen customers not really use Pentium 2, but the configuration can go down to Pentium 2 and something like 128 MB RAM with enough space to hold the files and transport the files. You will be able to run the ITK. The communication happens over HTTPS and encrypted shared secret authentication. It supports data archival. It supports error handling. It also uses timestamp tracker for transactional data, so that delta data can be downloaded from P2P. For example, if you are going to do invoice exports from P2P, then ITK supports a mechanism by which you would be able to extract the differential data between consecutive downloads. So if you do an export at noon today and then you run the next extract using ITK at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, then it is only going to give you the transactions that have been approved between noon and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, this way you don't have to sort out and filter the transactions that were created between two timestamps. ITK takes care of that. SAP transports, these are Ariba provided SAP programs for SAP ERP, of course. It extracts the master data and it creates the CSV file that can be transported over to P2P. It also helps you to consume the transactions that have been created by P2P. So if you create a purchase order in P2P and send it over to ERP, we have we have pre-built programs that can consume that file and create a corresponding purchase order in SAP. So the transport programs have been designed based on your most typical configuration. Our usual stance with plug and play is that the less customization you have, the more plug and play functionality you can achieve. If you try to customize it more, then you go away from plug and play. So when it comes to SAP Transport, not all Ariba integration points are covered. There are few master data objects that are still not supported by SAP Transport, mostly around purchasing unit and payment methods. Once you get more engaged with the Ariba deployment folks, you will understand what these objects mean, and not all the time they are going to be used, but when you bring these objects into scope, you will realize that SAP Transport does not provide the programs for these extracts. It also does not provide files or extract programs for taxes or budget check, and also from a transactional integration point of view, it does not support the requisition import yet. And if you decide to do any custom activities on the P2P, if you try to add more tables or more fields, then you need to make sure that you tweak the SAP transports in order to accommodate these new fields or new files that you're creating. If you want to have more custom logic on the data being extracted and sent to Ariba P2P, for example, you don't want to extract all the 10,000 cost centers that you're using. Maybe you just want 6,000 cost centers that are going to be involved in indirect purchasing. So you will have to take care of filtering the cost center logic and implement that on the SAP Transport, so that the file contains the data that you absolutely need. And if you see any other extract that you need for P2P and are not covered by SAP Transport, then you will have to line up your SAP resources in order to create programs or extract programs or consuming programs from SAP into Ariba, and vice versa. We also provide some SAP PI mappings. We provide the components in the mapping objects that can be installed directly on the PI. These are usually used for web service integration. Basically, it controls the translation of incoming XML messages to a format that your transport or the SAP Transport program can handle. Customer will be usually responsible for installation of the mappings, and if you are trying to do any changes on the mappings, then you have to involve your resources to make the necessary changes. Remote authentication. This is an entirely new topic. Ariba supports remote authentication. So let's just understand how authentication works. So in the beginning, you will be able to leverage Ariba's password-based authentication so that users are able to access the P2P application. Every user will be having their own user ID and password in order to access P2P solution, and the users are responsible for maintaining the passwords. At any point in time, Ariba will never know what the password is. We will be able to do a password reset, but we never get our hands on the real password at all. We support remote authentication, which means we will be leveraging your authentication module to authenticate an user before they are allowed to access P2P. The most commonly used industry standard is SAML. So we definitely support SAML 1.0 and 2.0, and we support both approaches, which is IDP initiated and SP initiated. The technical lead would be able to work with your infrastructure guys if you are going to implement the single sign-on or the remote authentication. One quick note about authentication. The remote authentication will control only the authentication part of it, it is not going to control the authorization part of the user. Meaning we can integrate our authentication with your system in such a way that we will be able to find out whether a user is allowed to access P2P or not. But once if the user is allowed to access, we won't be able to use remote authentication to dictate what features can he explore in P2P. That is controlled via authorization, and that's achieved via groups in P2P. So you will learn more when you get involved in the deployment. But yeah, at a high level, we do support remote authentication and single sign-on using SAML. So at the very bottom, the italics says it's possible that you may have some enterprise users who are going to use remote authentication, and there could be some other contractor users who are not in your Active Directory, in which case they need to use Ariba P2P but not via remote authentication. We support both mechanisms. We call them as third-party users. So yeah, we can support a mechanism where your enterprise users are authenticated using your remote authentication module, and third-party contractor users are authenticated using Ariba password mechanism. Okay. Documentation. You can the official documentation for the end user audience is definitely getting started user guide and reporting analysis guide. You can access the documentation directly from the P2P tool. If you have an account on connect.ariba.com, then you can access the documentation from Ariba Connect site as well. Administrator facing documentation. These are official documentation for anyone who is going to be the customer administrator for P2P. The data import admin guides, the Ariba integration toolkit. There is a guide for remote authentication as well. The most important one, if you are an SAP user, is definitely the SAP integration guide. Talks a lot about how you need to install the transports and how you need to configure them or tweak them if needed. But yeah, there is a whole library of documentation for administrator facing roles. Okay. This is a quick screenshot of, or a quick peek into the SAP integration guide, and some screenshots about it. You can get this documentation directly from Connect or from the P2P site itself. Basically, it talks about what are the different filtering and customization that you can achieve, what are the different transport that needs to be installed, more information on the transactional data integration, on error handling, and it has all the different SAP objects that are going to be created because of installing these transports. Okay, definitely go, if you're an SAP ERP user, definitely go ahead and explore this. It's going to come in very handy when you go ahead and integrate your P2P with SAP. Integration tracker. We have put together an integration tracker that will cater to your need in terms of tracking where in the integration landscape are you, and how long or how much effort is it going to need for you to achieve the integration. This is something that you can own it, and it is a living document. You can track your integration, you can understand where the data is coming from, what kind of interface are you using, whether it is going to be a one-time load, whether it is going to be a full load or an incremental load, how frequently do you need to schedule this, all such things. So this is a tracker that gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of dictating what kind of integration you're doing, and provide all the information to an admin who is controlling all these activities. Okay. The technical lead would be able to walk you through an integration tracker, or there would be a different recording to walk you through this tracker, but definitely work closely with the technical lead, and you know, he or she will help you understand the integration tracker better. Data dictionary. This is something that is system generated in P2P. Basically, it contains all the different integration tasks that are available in P2P. All the import events and all the export events are listed out. It talks about the different files that make up those events, and talks about each and every column in those files. If you are going to have any custom integration built out, then this is going to be a Bible for the developer who is going to do that, because it talks about the data types, what kind of string length restrictions are needed to be imposed, and all such things. So it also takes care of the referential integrity. So it talks a lot about how the internal file structure works, and is going to be very useful for any developer who is going to build out the integrations. The data dictionary is dynamically tailored, meaning every site has its own version of data dictionary. So tomorrow if I go in and add a new column to any of the files, or go ahead and add a new file itself, then the data dictionary would automatically get updated. The technical lead or the customer admin would be able to extract the new data dictionary from P2P site and use it for their integration activities. This is just a quick screenshot of how the data dictionary looks like, and you can see you can see the different export tasks listed out here, the different import tasks listed out here, and I have given you a quick peek into one of the import tasks where it shows you the different columns that are used, what data type they're using, and example, what is the string length, and all such thing. So you can see how this is going to be very useful for a developer who is trying to build out the integration. This is again another screenshot of data dictionary. So next steps, we are coming to the end of this presentation. I hope this has helped you gain some idea about what P2P and where it fits in your landscape, and what kind of integrations are we looking at, and what kind of effort or resources that you need to line up on your end in order to achieve the deployment of P2P. So from a next step point of view, there would be some education sessions set up by the technical lead. They will walk you through the different master data objects that need to be used by P2P. Also talk about the integration tracker that I just mentioned a few slides back. We will also talk about the integration requirements, gather the requirements, understand what needs to be passed from P2P to Ariba, what needs to be received from Ariba for your ERP to function smoothly. We will also establish a weekly check-in technical meetings so that the technical teams are up to date on what's going on and the latest development, and make sure that nothing is falling through the cracks. That's the end of this presentation. I have my contact details here. Again, my name is Arun Prakash Kalyamurthy. I go by Arun. I have listed my email address. My direct phone number is here. If you have any question at any point in time, don't hesitate to send me a note or give me a ring. I'm pretty good with emails. If I'm not responding to your call, it means I'm tied up in another meeting. But definitely shoot me a note, and I will definitely get back to you. Thank you so much. I hope this session has helped you. If you have any questions, please reach out. Till next time, thank you so much, and goodbye.